Hey guys, thanks for checking out the My Career Path podcast. Today I have another amazing guest, Rosa Lobaina. Rosa actually is a program director at FIU, which is Florida International University, and she's actually done a lot of work in Latin America, helping sell medical supplies, making sure all the things are up to snuff. And it was just awesome to talk with her about her path, how she's kind of transitioned all over selling and marketing, ultimately to becoming a teacher and a program director at FIU. So hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome to the My Career Path podcast. I have another very special guest, Rosa Lobaina. Rosa, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Colton?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm super glad to have you on the show. I love talking with people about their careers, about their paths, and just trying to help other people get an idea of what they want to do. So if you can, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, Rosa?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Rosa Lobaina, and I am a program director at FIU. I'm also adjunct faculty. I teach a marketing class, one per semester, so not to get too busy, right? I do have 3 children. I have 2 college students and one little guy in middle school, so I'm pretty busy most of the time. But I do enjoy my job and what I do. Particularly now, this has been a great. I've been at FIU for a year. I came back to FIU. I graduated from FIU back in the 90s, and I'm glad to be back. Yes, it's been
what did you graduate in?
So I have a bachelor's in business administration from FIU. The concentration was just business management, and then after that, I received my master's from Liberty University. So I have a master's in executive leadership from Liberty University.
Oh, awesome! That's way awesome. And yes. Then, how do you like teaching a marketing class? Those were some of my favorite classes when I was in university.
I love it. What I've done this semester is I've let them go through the book pretty much for the first half of the semester, and then now the second half we're getting into, the practical. Let's build a marketing plan. Let's talk about how it really works in the real world. So I'm excited about the second half. It's a little bit of a change. I've been putting some content together, so I've enjoyed that part of it too. And then of course, my students are online, so I don't get the chance to see them every day, but I try to interact as much as I can.
That's awesome. That's so wonderful to hear. I love talking with people about, especially for graduating students, just what it looks like after you graduate. So let's kind of go over your career path. What was the very first job you ever held, maybe as a teenager?
Yep. So my parents did not let me work through high school because my job was to get A's, they were pretty strict about that. And then when I graduated, they said no retail, no food service, nothing. You need to work in an office so you can learn something, right? So I did. I got a job. My next door neighbor worked in an office, and she said, "Hey, there's this job. Do you want it?" I said, "Well, yeah." So I went and I interviewed. I got the job. Basically, what they did was that they ran credit reports through the credit reporting agency. They were like an affiliate, and they ran credit reports for housing management companies up in the Northeast. So like from Boston all the way up, Chicago, New York, etc. And what we would do is we would receive calls, like a customer service setup, and we would run credit reports for them. We would also run something called an FPR report, which is failure to pay rent report. And that was just this affiliate, this company would go out to all of the courthouses and they would download all of the court filings that had anything to do with failure to pay rent, evictions, liens, all of that stuff. And then we would have a database with that information for them. So we would report on anyone that came to apply for an apartment. So I learned really early on that you need a really good credit score, because if not, you are not in a good position, not even, you can't even get a place to live, right? So that was great. I was there through most of my time at FIU. So college, that was my college job. I learned different things. I was customer service. I did accounts receivable. I did accounts payable. I reconciled large phone bills from a company that was called MCI, which I'm sure you probably have never heard of. But anyway,
nope.
So it was like, stacks this big of just going through every single call, making sure that, it's exactly what we needed to be paying for. So that was great. I actually, when I finished high school, I wanted to be a doctor. So I started, I went the biology track in school when I first started, but as I started working in this company, I realized that I did love the numbers. So I went ahead and I changed to business administration. And then, again, that career, actually that choice took me exactly where I wanted to be later in my second job, which was at Eastman Kodak Company. So I worked for Eastman Kodak for about 7 years. The way that happened was that I was in again, I was at FIU getting my bachelor's, and I happened to be in one class with one of the HR managers at Eastman Kodak Company, and it was for the Latin American region. Throughout the course of the semester, I became friendly with her, and I started asking her questions. And I said, "Hey, I'd love to work at Kodak. I've always been really good at self-promoting myself and selling
Hmm.
myself."
Yeah, kind of personal branding and kind of
Yes,
making sure people
absolutely. I'm
knew
a
who you
huge,
were.
huge advocate of that, and hopefully that's something that the kids in my class are going to be able to catch on, as we move forward in the semester. But anyway, so I said, hey, anything that you can do, if there's anything that you think that I would be a good fit for. And towards the end of the semester, I guess after she realized that I could be trusted, right? Because we did a project together.
Yeah.
She gave me the opportunity. That's a very, very important word, the word opportunity. Whenever you're given an opportunity, or whenever you have the opportunity to, um, you know, to present yourself and to make a move, that's something that you always have to take advantage of it, because sometimes you only get that one, right?
Right.
So she gave me the opportunity to interview with a great set of managers there. I was part of a great team. It was a health imaging team. So then that's when everything came together for me. I wanted to be a doctor, but I also loved business and the numbers and communication and all of that. And then I started working for the health imaging division as a marketing coordinator. And soon after I started, I became a product manager for them for mammography and oncology. And I traveled throughout Latin America, giving it was called quality control. So basically my courses as a product manager for Kodak were, I had about three continuing education credits assigned to my courses by
Hmm.
the Radiology Association here in the United States. So we would go and we would sell to them by educating them on how to optimize
Really?
their clinical image and how to have quality control in the darkroom. So I'll leave that
That's way
there. So
cool.
yes, so selling through education, right? So we'll leave that there. After that, so Kodak Latin American region closed its doors probably in 2003. They centralized, decentralized. I don't know what they did, but Kodak is pretty much just like a museum piece right now, unfortunately.
Hmm.
I met my husband at Kodak, so that was very positive. I had a great team. I know that as far as mentoring or mentorship, I had a great mentor at Kodak. He was my boss for 7 years. He was amazing. He helped me through all of every process that I went through at Kodak, whether it was becoming a program manager, whether it was training. He was just there always to support me and to tell me, hey, this is the way that you're going to do this. This is your next step. This is what you need to. I remember one time he said, you have to stop going to the administrative assistant events, because you would get invited to all of the
Yeah,
events.
you'd have big conferences and whatnot to kind of get
Yes, and
to,
he
and
said you have to distance yourself from being part of those events, because now you're a product manager. So you need to be part of these other
hmm,
events, right? So again, it
yeah.
was just that guiding me through, um,
So he
you
kind of
know,
helped you like change and kind of think, hey, now you're doing this. This is what you should focus
yes,
on. Kind of move
yes,
on
yes,
that, and he
yes,
was a
yeah.
really effective guide for you, right?
Absolutely. And he was a great example. Everybody loved to work with him. He helped anybody that he could. There was, he always tried to help everyone that he could, anyone that worked for him, or anyone like the distributors in the countries. We worked with distributors in most of Latin America, and they all loved him very much. So,
Hmm.
he was a great start. And along with him, there were a couple of others that were also very good uh, mentors to me throughout my time
Yeah.
at Kodak. So my time at Kodak was invaluable. I learned a lot during that time.
Hmm.
And then, of course, like I said, I met my husband after Kodak. I actually, after they closed the Latin American region, so health imaging, for whatever the reason, I think it's because we were the most profitable of the region. Actually, we sold about $180 million of X-ray film into Latin America, and that was back
Wow.
in 2001.
Yeah.
Um,
So with everything
so
that's going on, that's a big
yes,
chunk.
yes, yes, yes. So they decided to close down the office here in Miami. Little by little, health imaging was one of the first ones to either move to Mexico or move to Atlanta or whatever. Of course, I wasn't going anywhere. After that, I got pregnant. I had my first two kids. They were 15 months
Hmm.
apart, so I was out for a little while. And then I came back and I worked for within same kind of marketing and sales roles. I worked for several companies. I worked for Tyco Healthcare, which later became Covidien, which now I think is Medtronic.
Yeah.
I worked for, let's see, I worked for Toyota, and that was a great project. It was about a 15-month project. I did the launch of the 2009 Toyota Corolla into selected Latin American countries, and that was
Oh,
a
that's
lot of
awesome.
fun. Yes, yeah, the budget and the just everything. That was a great experience for me. So I love that it's on my resume. And then after that, I went back to medical device. I worked for a company called Welch Allen, and they're anything from a stethoscope. So whenever you go to the doctor, if you see your stethoscope, the ophthalmoscope, the otoscope, everything, that's
Hmm.
mostly usually it's Welch Allen. And
Really?
yes, so anything
That's so
from
cool.
yeah, so from primary care all the way to the OR to post-op. If I can go through all of their product line really, but yeah, what I loved about Well Challenge was the solution selling. We had a solution for every single healthcare provider. Again, from primary care all the way to, the OR, post operative, after when you were in the ICU recuperating, so recovery, so I love the fact that we could sell everything. And that made
Hmm.
us a great partner to have. So that was a great, and there at Well Challenge, we also had an element of education when we sold our products because we went after medical students in the different countries in Latin America. And we would hold conferences and take doctors and talk to them about our products and just make sure that at that medical student level, we were reaching out to these future doctors that were going to have their own private practices, that were going to work in hospitals and be decision makers. And that's where we were focusing, but that's what we were focusing on. We had a group that focused on that, and that
Hmm.
was actually very exciting.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
just
think that's
about
really
what.
cool. And especially where you kind of have a little bit of a background of going, I want to be a doctor. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're selling kind of these products to future doctors. I bet
Yeah.
that was really cool to kind of think of like, oh, I could have been there, but I really like my role where I am now
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So after that, no, and it gave me a chance to do a lot of different things, like be a mom in my early 20s or
Yeah.
my mid 20s. Which a career as a doctor is very demanding and
Yeah.
it's a sacrifice. So if you
Long
have a
hours,
calling to
big
do that,
days. Yeah.
yeah, if that's your calling, then that's your calling, and there's no way of getting around it. I've heard of people that become something else, and then they're like 30, and they say, "But I just always wanted to be a doctor," and then they go to
Hmm.
medical school when they're 30. So, it's difficult to make those decisions as we were talking about before. But I again being in medical device for such a long time gave me the opportunity to visit hospitals and be with doctors and learn as much as I could, even when it wasn't about sales and it was about the product and the way that
Yeah.
they use the product. So that was pretty cool. It was the best of both worlds, is what I tell my kids, right?
Yeah, really.
So,
You got
yeah.
to see it all. You got to be in a job that you really enjoy, that you really like with the numbers and marketing and everything else,
Hmm.
as well as helping the people that you were like, you know what, that sounds interesting to me as when you were younger. So I think that's really cool, a really cool path that you have, Rosa.
Yes, yes. No, I have enjoyed it very much, and I've enjoyed my family and my children as well. So, that has always been the part that has always been a priority, to balance work and family life. And definitely family always is a priority for our family, including my husband as well. So,
Hmm.
and I did do a lot of traveling. Don't get me wrong, I did, but it was always on my terms, in the sense that I always had a great team. I would go down to the Brazil on Sunday night, be back by Wednesday, by Thursday morning, right? And we would
Yeah.
work and get what had to be done, and then we were ready to go home. So that was a blessing, really, to be able to work that way. So after I was at Well Challenge, I moved to Mindray, which used to be Datascope. Again, that's monitoring, monitors, ICU monitors, anesthesia machines, and things like that.
Hmm.
So, I kind of went into that area. And then after Mindray bought Datascope, slowly but surely, Mindray was taking over a lot of the positions down here. We're moving pieces around. So my boss told me, like, in August, hey, they're closing us down in December. And I came home and I said to my husband, I said, well, I have good news and bad news. And he says, okay, bad news first, as always.
Yeah.
I'll tell me the bad news first. Anyway, so I said, bad news is that, they're closing us down in December. So,
Oh
uh,
no.
and, so it was fine. It wasn't a big deal. I had already had my third son, Jonathan, right?
Hmm.
So he was little. And he said, what is the good news? And I said, well, I'm going to find a job right away. Don't worry. It's not going to be a big deal. I said, but I'm never going back to 9 to 5, right? Because with Mindray, I worked from home. It was my first home office position. So I traveled, but when I wasn't traveling, I was home. And that really
Yeah.
just helped me with my family and work balance. So, after Mindray, I took a bit of a sabbatical. And I actually did some work in a radio station. So we did some community
Really?
relations marketing for a radio station. Yeah, that's not on my LinkedIn profile just because I'm going to be honest with you. It's just the radio station does not have apparently because it doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't have a
Ah, okay.
logo on their company profile. And I refuse not to have a logo on the company
You have to
profile.
have a logo.
Sorry. Anyway, my marketing side is just not driving with a no logo on.
Exactly. It has to have a
Anyway,
logo. That's
yeah, yeah. So I was doing that part time. Again, my son was little, and I was there for a couple of years, and I worked with, just all of my work had been international, Latin America, Europe, etc. So now I'm working with the local market here in Miami. I'm enjoying meeting a lot of people. I worked with several nonprofit organizations that were also a part of this whole radio thing, and I got to learn a little bit more about media. I was on the radio. Not a lot, but I was on the radio a bunch, right? As much as
yeah.
I really wanted to be on the radio. So
Right.
that was an exciting thing for me. And again, just meeting a lot of people here locally in Miami, I made a lot of contacts. And actually, through that, short time on the radio, I went back to the school where I graduated from, where I finished high school. And I was talking to the headmaster, and he was actually my principal when I was there. So I'd known him for many, many years, and said, "Hey, you should come on the radio. I think, we could have a program for you. It could be called Tuesday Morning Talks and blah, blah, blah." So I was trying to get him to be on the air with us. I thought it would be great to have someone like him. He's an excellent, he was an excellent leader for many years in that school. And, as we're talking, he said, "Rosa, I have a job for you. Are you interested in working here?" And I said, "Wow, well, I don't know. I have to think about it. I'm part-time. I'm really not looking for, any kind of full-time commitment. I have my 3 kids. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed being home for the most part during that time." He said, "Well, they would come here to school and, it'll be so after a little bit of thought, right? We decided that I was going to take the position. So that's when I transitioned into education,
Yeah.
which was wild, right? Because I was always medical device
Yeah,
marketing,
you were
but
always
yeah,
marketing, branding, kind of
yes,
selling and
yes,
whatnot, and to transition
yeah.
to teaching and education.
Yeah.
That's a shift
Well,
for sure.
actually, I wasn't teaching. I was a director of admissions and communications. So there
Okay.
again, I am selling. I'm selling
Yeah,
the
you're still
school.
selling. Yeah.
Yes, I'm putting together a marketing plan. Everything. So it was again. I treated it as the admission cycle to me was like a sales cycle. Every year we would, do something new. We would keep whatever needed to be kept. We were calculating return on investment. It was very methodical, very strategic. Everything that I was there for like a good 6 or 7 years as well. And then after that, my kids were old enough. They've been graduated, and I decided to move on. And of course, my next step was definitely, I had my eyes on higher ed. So I started looking for a position. I was, kind of preparing myself during the time that I was at this school. I got my master's, which somehow I felt like it was for nothing, right? For a little while, because I got a master's. I didn't get a raise. Nobody really even noticed because I graduated during COVID. So,
Yeah.
I didn't even get to walk. It
You
was kind
did
of,
you did the virtual walk where you just kind of watch the announcement and everything.
I don't know. I know. I don't think I even did. It was very anticlimactic, right? It was
Just
like,
yeah, it was
oh,
just over.
I got
That's
I
funny.
got my diploma in the mail, and I just looked at it and thought, oh, how am I gonna get this framed now? It's in the middle of
Yeah.
COVID, right? So that was my COVID nightmare, I guess, or a bad experience. Thankfully, we didn't have any problems during that time. But so then I started looking into higher education, and I know one of the questions that I saw on your form is having a degree a big deal?
Yeah.
So I want to say that maybe not in any of the other positions. Sometimes experience can go a long way. Even though I always feel like people are looking for that degree just because it just goes to show how much you're willing to put into something, and commitment and persistence and all of these other good characteristics that people are
Yeah, it
looking for.
shows that you can complete, you're going to see something
Follow
through to
through,
the
yes.
end.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So that's a big deal. In today's world, it's hard to explain to the youth that such and such influencer didn't even finish high school, or
Right.
whatever, and they're making millions of dollars on YouTube, but hey,
Exactly.
they're working hard. Let me tell you, those people creating content, I don't want to be them. That's very, very difficult to do. So, but anyway, so at the university level, definitely you need to have your degree. If you have a bachelor's, then you're kind of stuck in that area. And again, it's great to work in higher education, but it gets to the point where if you don't have a master's, you cannot go to the next level, right? So then this is where I've seen that my master's has helped me. I was able to apply for this position. Part of the requirements was having a master's. And it was just a good transition. What I do as a program director, where I'm actually the director of corporate partnership for the Office of Executive Education at FIU. And what we do is that we create custom learning solutions for companies that are looking for help or that are looking to meet specific professional development goals for their organization. So that's what we do. We also have obviously the open enrollment where you can do, individually, you can go in there and get a certificate of whatever, program management, Lean Six Sigma, etc. But we do a lot of, change management. We do digital transformation, some leadership stuff, strategic thinking, all of that. So competitive intelligence and et cetera, moving into AI and all of that moving forward. So that's where I am. And of course my marketing class that I have so much fun planning.
Yeah. Well, and I just think it's super cool just throughout your career path. It seems like, what's it called? Networking has been a huge thing for you. Just making sure that you have those connections with people, making sure that you're building relationships so that you can not use them later, but you have those opportunities. You have a lot more opportunities when you're talking with other people, when you're building those relationships. And then they reach out to you, like your former principal and headmaster, where he goes, "Hey, I have a position just for you. You're the one that I need." And I think that is so important for anyone looking at careers or jobs is make sure that you're making relationships, you're getting to know people, because that's what allows you to do what you want to do later in life. Really, it does.
Yes, absolutely. And in any area, it could be personal as well. I get a lot of requests for, hey, can you send a recommendation? Absolutely. Yes. You have my recommendation. I actually used ChatGPT for a recommendation just this week because I was very busy. Yes.
Yeah.
So I wrote the gist of it. It was like, it was a good recommendation. And then I put it in ChatGPT just for, I said, I need to get this done ASAP. And that thing is good. Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
3.0. I don't know which one I use, but it was.
Well, I just think it's super cool. And I'd love to get your take on it as well, because especially in marketing, I know AI has been a huge help just in gathering research, getting data, getting relevant data for that matter. I think it's super cool. It's something I've used, like my intro and outro for the podcast that was made by AI. When I do scripts and whatnot, I use a little bit of AI to try to get ideas rolling, to get things going. And I think it's a phenomenal tool. So do you teach students about how to use AI a little bit? Because it's becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah, so I really don't think that I need to teach it. That's a joke.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Get into AI in the second half of the semester, but the first half of the semester, I realized that particularly this semester, one of my assignments is upload a video introduction of yourself. So that obviously they had to do it, but after I listened to all the video intros, the second it was 50 video intros that I listened to. So the second assignment was tell me in your own words what marketing is. And I got ChatGPT stuff. It was, I couldn't, I was reading and I'm going, this is not, I heard your video.
Yeah. This is not the same person. This is not your voice.
Yeah, definitely not. So that was kind of interesting. So right at that point, I said my discussion posts have to be completely different. So, I changed things around. Like, for example, one of my case studies, I gave them the case study and then I asked them questions, which is a lot. It's not really more work for me. I guess in the front end, at the back end, if I have to read all these ChatGPT discussion posts, it's going to be terrible anyway. So, but that's what I did. I changed some of that around so that they would answer questions just to make sure that they understood the material. And I did get rid of the final because the midterm, I used Lockdown Browser. but that was fine. They just needed to study that material and kind of get to know it. And then the second half is going to be a little bit more practical so that we're not using ChatGPT or
Right.
doing any of those other things that we know that we do in college because we need to get through it.
Yeah, exactly. We
So
don't need to just check all the boxes. We need to actually understand.
correct, correct. So yeah, the final is going to be a project, which is going to be a bear to grade because it's 50 projects, but I think it'll be fine. Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
they can, as long as they get the concepts, as we're preparing for the final. But so one of the things I did want to do this semester was I wanted to get my own personal avatar, so that I could write the lesson and not have to record it because recording it just takes a long time. And
Yeah.
I don't always want to say the same thing. And if I can just change the script, then it's easy for another. So I was looking into that. It's super
Huh.
expensive. There's some that I've seen, but then it just looks really fake. So I'm still working
Right.
on it. But in the meantime, I'll be recording my presentations again. But yeah, that's a goal that I have. I think in marketing it makes sense. And definitely the other day I saw a post just recently this week on LinkedIn that said AI is not going to take your job, but someone that knows how to use AI will.
Will.
So that's the
Yeah.
difference. That's going to be that, before whatever it was, the digital marketing certificate, the this, the that, oh, you know how to use Salesforce, you're a Salesforce administrator, but all
Hmm.
of that is going to be second to I can use AI effectively. This is how I've used it. This is, what I've done. And it's just you can be as creative as you want, but with AI, but it's just going to help you with your time. What's going to
Yeah.
take you 3 hours to do, it's going to do it in seconds.
Well, and that's
Right.
something just even in marketing that I've noticed because I remember taking marketing classes, and even though I just graduated, 2, 3 years ago, now it's a completely different ball game, and the
Yep.
importance of trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing, try to keep up with the latest technology and trends. Which is why I agree with you as far as a degree, where it's really important to show that hey, I can do things from start to finish. I'll get it done. I'll work on it. But there's so much more that you have to continue learning. You have to continue, grinding, sharpening your axe to make sure that you're as effective as you can be, because the market just continues to change, and especially in marketing. It used to be when I was growing up, marketing was just, hey, it's a commercial, like that's it, commercial or billboard, and now there's social media, there's text messages, YouTube, Twitch, like all of these different platforms that are becoming more and more popular, TikTok, and you have to be able to adapt and continue learning and kind of honing your skills to kind of keep up and really be effective.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish that I could transfer a lot of my not my knowledge, but just my experience to my kids and to just anyone that needs to see the broader picture. I saw doctors in Latin America and even here in the United States that they stopped practicing and they became specialists for large pharmaceutical companies or large medical
Hmm.
device companies, right? Because now they can relay this information at a certain level, which, obviously I can't do because I didn't go to medical school. I can do, if I know about the product, I'm a product specialist or a subject matter expert or whatever, but not at the level that a doctor can relate the information, right?
Yeah.
So then they would become employed by these large organizations, make as much money as they were making when they were doctors without having to worry about insurance or any of the other risks that they have to take as doctors, right? So, and I've seen accountants working in Fortune 500 companies,
Mhm.
uh, and then deciding that they want to be nurses later. So again, it's a matter of, you have to be flexible. You have to be open to whatever, if something is if someone is knocking at your door, if there's an opportunity, if an opportunity is calling, you have to be able to identify that opportunity. You have to be able to figure out what are the pros and cons. And of course, it's easier when you have uh, another person that you can bounce ideas off of and all of that. But
Yeah, like a
definitely,
mentor, have those
yeah.
relationships.
But even, within your own family, if you have a parent that can help you, if when you're younger, if you have, your spouse or whatever that can help you make those decisions, that's a big deal. And then again, always knowing what your priorities are. What is your number one priority? Is it your family? Well, then that's when you have to understand that you need to be willing or able to step away from your career at any point in time to raise your family, which is what I did.
Yeah.
And then, my husband was the main breadwinner of the house and he was taking care of whatever needed to be taken care of. So again, there's a lot of planning and you do have to be strategic as you move through life. Definitely with your children, you have to know what you want them to see in your, as far as your relationship at home. So again, everything is a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just agree with that. And especially just in building relationships and identifying those opportunities, like you said,
Hmm.
I think that's so important because a lot of times, and I know for me, when I was growing up, it was like, yeah, I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to get my dream job. I'm going to work there forever and then, retire. We're going to be good. It just all set. But really it's like, all right, my dream job might be something like this podcast for a while and it might change, and it
Yes.
changes as I change. And so being able to identify what you really want to do, what kind of impact you want to have is really kind of daunting a little bit, but it's also freeing in the same sense. You're never just set in stone. Like that's the only thing that you can do. You have a degree in marketing or business or whatever, so you have to be doing that. You could go to nursing whenever. You could change. It just takes more work, like you said.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, and I
So,
want to ask you a little bit about your master's degree because I just did an episode that just went out and I was thinking about it because I know a lot of my classmates when I was graduating went straight from an undergrad to a master or graduate program. And I was kind of doing research and looking over that, and I want to kind of get your take. Do you think it would have been more effective for you if you would have, right after you graduated with your bachelor's degree, to go and get your master's, or do you think it would have really changed that much?
so I, uh, you know, looking back, right? I think it worked out. This was the best option for me.
Hmm.
When I was at Kodak, I was actually selected to, or I received an approval to get my master's from
Hmm.
HR and all of that. So you had to apply and you had to have letters of recommendation from your boss and all that. I went through that whole process, and right as I got approved, then we were all downsized, right? So I never got the chance to do it, but I was approved for the executive MBA at FIU, and I was super excited about getting my executive MBA at FIU and just continuing my education there.
Yeah.
And obviously I was young. I didn't have any kids at that point, so that it was kind of the ideal thing, or so they say, right?
Yeah.
But almost 20 years later, 18 years later, was when I actually started my master's. There was several reasons, of course, my career, the kids and all of that. But basically, 18 years later, when I started my master's, again, for me, it worked out. If you have the
Yeah.
chance to do it right out of college, because that's when it's going to be best for you financially speaking,
Hmm.
or, timing or whatever. I would never tell someone don't do it now. I would
Yeah.
just say, go for it, do it as soon as you can, because life takes many turns. And and again, look, I received my master's. I didn't really use it, right, per se, for a couple of
For a
years.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like, a card up my sleeve, and then now I have that card to negotiate with, right? So again, but I do think it would have been a different experience. Now, when I was like I said, I was at Kodak for almost 7 years. So I had
Hmm.
all of this corporate experience behind me, right when I was going to get my master's back then. So I think, again, it's a different experience for everybody, because maybe there's no corporate experience, there's no experience at all, or you've only been in school. So I think corporate experience is a big deal. When you apply for a master's at FIU, one of the things that they ask you is obviously for your resume. I think the
Hmm.
professors enjoy having students in class that have some kind of corporate experience or exposure,
Yeah.
because it just makes it easier to present the material, because it makes sense, right? When
Hmm.
you're an undergrad and you do that, I don't know if you did business, but I think one of the last classes is strategic leadership or strategy or something like that,
Yes.
and
So, yeah.
to
Strategic
implement
leadership. Yep. I
that
remember
one, right?
taking that.
So,
Hmm.
and I remember doing that class, but I had been, again, working at Kodak. So when we did the final project with my team was about Kodak and about their
Hmm.
process. No one else had that experience or had
Yeah.
that access, but I did. I had numbers, and whatever I needed was there, right? So even for that, it makes sense. And I always tell people, young students or young people like yourself, if you have a chance to work in corporate America for just a little while, sometimes, it's difficult, but if you do, it's good, because you're going to get to see how things are supposed to work. The big picture.
Yeah.
You're going to get to see the big picture. And once you have the big picture, then you can come back and do anything that you want, really. Because that's number one. And number two, when you work for a large company, it looks really good on your resume. So, for example, after I left Kodak, then who wanted me? Well, all of the competitors, right?
Right.
So, it makes you marketable to do that.
Well, and that's something that even in doing my research and kind of looking over it and considering me, I'm like, yes, eventually I do want to go back and get my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
But just being able to apply everything that you're learning to either a current job or a current career experience, because it's just so important. And I think it helps you clarify what you actually want to do. You know, you
Yes.
get to see what you like at certain companies, what you don't like. You get to see all the ins and outs, like you were saying, especially in corporate America. I'm sure you have plenty of different experiences where you maybe weren't doing just marketing. You know, you were also doing customer support. You were doing all facets of the business. And so to
Yes.
help kind of identify what you really want to specialize in, what you really want to focus on, and then go for it maybe a little bit later, but getting that experience first, I think is super, super critical.
Yep, absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because the case study that one of the case studies that I put together for this class was actually a paper that I wrote for my master's program.
Oh yeah.
So yes, yes. So and I used a lot of it for a case study. So that there you see how we're building, right? We're laying some foundational things, the bachelor's, the experience, the master's, and then now as I'm teaching, I'm using, what I created during my master's program. And I think as I move forward, I always talk about maybe I'll get a PhD. I don't know, in the future. That would be something to think about, but I have thought about it a
Yeah.
lot. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that journey, the education, and just going through all those steps. And again, you're never too old and you're never too young. I know a lot of students, they go for their DBAs, right? So
Yeah.
their doctorate in business administration, and they don't even have to get the master's because it's kind of like a combined program depending on the university. So, just keep pushing forward. Definitely. If you have that drive, then
Yeah.
that's time to do it.
Well, and I think especially just too, there's so many resources available to continue learning, to continue applying different things. I mean, YouTube is amazing. I mean, like that's how I'm learning video editing. That's how I'm learning marketing and whatnot. Like I'm trying to gather as much as I can. And for me, I really enjoy it, just being able to kind of decide what I want to learn and moving from there. And it's really helping me understand, what do I like? What do I not like? What do I want to do later? What do I not want to do? Because that's just what you learn over your career, and what you learn over jobs and whatnot is what you really like and enjoy and what you're good at. And then how can you focus on that, and how can you network with people so that those opportunities to do more of what you're good at continue to happen.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, that's it. You got
So
it.
if someone were to apply for a position to work with you, like either with you as a program director or kind of under you, kind of like on your team, what are some of probably the main traits that you look for in a potential candidate?
That's a great question. So we are actually looking for a candidate right now for a program coordinator, actually. And what I would look for is to find some similarities with people that I worked with in the past. I don't know if that makes any sense, but so I've had people that I worked with that have had different skills and experience, and if I could find someone that has all of them or at least a little bit of everything, that would be great.
Yeah.
So that what we're looking for is someone that has experience with events, someone that's flexible, someone that can make quick decisions, a self-starter. Again, there's just some very basic things that we need so that we can trust that they're going to do a great job. And then obviously, team player and all of the, a lot of the stuff that you read on resumes, it's just black and white. It's on paper. I really believe in recommendations and, doing some research online and figuring out, what's really going on. So definitely a good interview, someone that can communicate effectively, both in writing and, I personally like someone that's going to say thank you for the interview, someone that's going to just be very engaging, right? Because that's how I would do it. And then someone that would follow up, someone that even if they wouldn't get the position, they would say, hey, thank you for the opportunity. So all of those things, just again, be very just engaging. Make sure that you leave a really good impression, or that you make a really good impression, as you're going through the process. And then of course, a big deal is common sense. We want someone that has common sense. Like I said, they can make a quick
Common
decision.
sense, and they can apply it in
Yes,
experiences
absolutely.
yeah.
So a lot of times, we're missing that. Not because, people are, but just you know, if you're young, you have to understand, and that's what we try to tell our children as well. Hey, there's a process for everything. If you can follow instructions, if you can, you know, understand why we're doing this, then you're going to understand how you can, you know, what the result needs to be and all of that. So definitely critical thinking skills.
Well, that's something that is in different books that I've read and whatnot. It's not that people have a lack of knowledge and that's why they fail. It's usually you need to be present. You know, you need to be able to think and apply different things to situation and think, okay, how can I do this better? What are ideas that I can kind of come up with? It's not so much I don't know enough. It's you kind of give up on the situation, and that's when you truly start to kind of fail. But as long as you're kind of present, aware, you're thinking about, hey, how can we improve such and such? How can we do better? What can I focus on? Then you'll succeed. I mean, you'll meet people, you'll have those opportunities, but you have to be aware of and be able to identify, like you said earlier.
Yes, absolutely. So we just hired like 3 student assistants in the department, and they were great. They seem like they're going to be a great fit. They're doing a wonderful job. Some of them, a couple of them, particularly one, I thought, man, I wish that she was older so that we can but have a bachelor's to be a program coordinator. So they're just a freshman. But you know, even within that group of kids that are just coming into the world.
There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just like you know, that group of kids that's coming into the, you know, the world of working and employment or whatever, you can see the differences of, you know, maybe their experiences in the past in high school or whatever, and you know, of course, their attitudes and everything. So
Perfect. Well, Rosa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, about your career path, about what you've learned, and everything that you've gone over. And so I really appreciate anyone who comes on the show. I hope if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. One last question before I let you go, because I love asking people this, and I love getting people's funny stories. Is there any story that was kind of funny or humorous over your career that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yes, actually. So when I was in Tyco Healthcare, one of the things that I did was launch the SharePoint site into Latin America, and for the Latin American region. And I also happened to be taking doing the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt training in Colorado during the week of the launch, right? So
all about efficiencies.
Yes. So then that's good, right? But this is what happened. I myself did not follow my own process because I was in a different place, a different time zone. I had my personal computer instead of my work computer because my work computer was getting something done, and so I had to take my personal computer. So I was working over there doing, you know, trying to learn the material and trying to pass the test. And then also I was doing this launch of the SharePoint site, right? So it must have been, I don't know, like a Thursday night, and it was again in Colorado, so like 10, 11 o'clock at night up there. And I send out the email. Hey, you know, Latin America region, we have the SharePoint site and blah, 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 blah. And here are the instructions so that you can go ahead and put it as your, you know, when you open your Internet Explorer, one of the pages that's going to come up, it's going to be your main page, blah, blah, blah. And this is, all right. So I went ahead and I attached instructions. Now, remember, I worked in women's health for a long time, mammography and oncology. So I had a bunch of things in my personal computer that may or may not have been anything about SharePoint, right? But
exactly.
Yeah. So the file that I actually labeled instructions, well, apparently there was another file labeled instructions. So I attached that file. I did not follow it. I mean, usually every single time that I send an email till this day, and before that, I opened the attachment first.
The attachments. Yep. Good practice. Good practice.
Yes, because you never know if, you know, if the format is going to be off or whatever.
Right.
So I didn't do that because I just wanted to get it out. I was tired. I had to study. I sent it out, and it was about 30 seconds later when maybe somebody from, I don't know if it was Argentina, Chile, somewhere, you know, down in the South Cone of Latin America, emails me back and said, are you saying that we smell bad? And I was like, oh, what? So I opened, and it was instructions on how to get rid of body odor with rubbing alcohol, because it had to, and it was basically the,
awesome.
It was crazy. So I freaked out, you know, I started recalling the message, but I wasn't able to do it, you know, as efficient.
For all of them.
Right, for the entire Latin American region. It was a lot of people, right? So then I start getting more messages. Hey, Rosa, what happened? Yeah. I'm like, oh, no. So then immediately I email HR, dear Pam, blah, this is what happened. This is the email. You must received it. I tried to recall it. I've already received that. Please, I just wanted to let you know this. So what happened was that was that was information that I had in my computer because of, all of this breast cancer awareness and studies and things like that of not using deodorant because it has lead or I don't know whatever that it's right. So that again, I just pulled the instruction file and that was something that was just sitting around, right?
That's
so
just
it
on
was
your
hilarious.
personal computer.
Yeah,
Oh man.
it was hilarious. My boss never spoke a word of it to me. Maybe his message got recalled on time. I'm sure he heard of it. But what I did to counter the whole situation was every time I went down to a country to talk about whatever it was, whether it was the Lean Six Sigma projects or whatever, then I would open with my story of, hey, remember that time that I sent this to you guys?
Yeah.
And you were all emailing me back in the middle of the night asking me if you smelled.
If we smelled bad.
So, yeah, I just went like, whatever, I had to be very direct.
That's awesome.
Well, this is an example of why you need to follow your process, because if you go beyond your upper or lower control limits, then that's when you have errors of this magnitude. So yeah, that's it. That's how I neutralized it real quick, but it was
so funny.
It was 20 minutes of panic, I guess.
Oh, that's funny. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it so much. I love when people share their stories. It's just funny because it's like no one's perfect. Everyone's going to mess up. Everyone's going to make mistakes. And so being able to leverage it like you did, I think that's awesome. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the My Career Path podcast. If you did, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe and let me know what your guys' favorite part was. Hopefully there was something in here that you learned that you're able to apply to your own career. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.